I never thought touching an alien's hand would cost me everything, but I'd do it again. Jack Vey stood at the viewport of Borealis Station, watching the purple-hazed planet rotate below. 3 years. That's how long his assignment would last on this distant world, maintaining the orbital defense grid for a species he'd only read about in training manuals. The Virelians. Tall, graceful, with skin that shimmered in shades of violet and eyes that seemed to pierce straight through lies. And their hair, midnight black, flowing like silk down their backs. The women especially were stunning, though the cultural briefing had been crystal clear. Do not engage romantically with the locals, especially not with anyone from the ruling families. Human pilot? A voice like wind chimes broke his thoughts. Jack turned and forgot how to breathe. She stood in the doorway of the maintenance bay, nearly 7 feet tall, her purple skin catching the station's blue lighting. Long black hair cascaded past her shoulders, and her eyes, deep amber with flecks of gold, fixed on him with curious intensity. "I'm Alessa," she said, moving closer with that characteristic Virelian grace. "You're the one who fixed our defense grid last week?" "Guilty." Jack managed to grin. "Jack Vey, though I guess you already knew that." "I did." The corner of her mouth lifted. "I also know humans aren't supposed to be alone with Virelian women, especially not me." "And why's that?" "Because my mother is Matriarch Vera." She watched his face carefully. "I see you've heard of her." Everyone had heard of Vera, the iron-willed leader who'd unified 3 provinces and ruled with absolute authority. The woman who'd personally executed trade agreements with Earth's colonial government. The mother who, rumor said, had rejected 17 suitors for her daughter in the past year alone. "Should I be worried?" Jack asked. Alessa laughed, a sound that made his chest tighten. "Terrified, actually, but you don't look terrified." "I'm good at hiding it." "Liar." She stepped closer, close enough that he could smell something like cinnamon and ozone. "I can see your pulse. Right there." One long finger hovered near his throat. "Racing. Maybe that's not fear." Her eyes widened slightly. Then that smile returned, sharper now. "Careful, human. That sounds like flirting. People have been exiled for less. Good thing I like living dangerously." They stood there, the space between them charged with possibility and danger. Outside the viewport, Borealis's twin moons began to rise. One silver, one amber, casting strange shadows across the bay. "Meet me here tomorrow night," Alessa whispered, "after second moonrise. If you dare." She left before he could answer, her footsteps silent on the metal floor. Jack turned back to the viewport, his reflection grinning like an idiot. He was absolutely going to meet her. The problem with zero gravity isn't the floating. It's trying not to kiss her when she's inches from your face. Jack arrived at the maintenance bay 15 minutes early, his heart hammering against his ribs. The twin moons painted everything in silver and gold, and the station hummed its usual midnight melody. Punctual, Alessa's voice came from above. He looked up to find her floating near the ceiling, her black hair drifting around her like a dark halo. She'd deactivated the gravity in the bay. "Show off," Jack said, activating his mag boots. No. She drifted down, graceful as a dancer. "You can't experience Borealis properly with your feet stuck to the floor." Her fingers found the controls on his belt, and suddenly Jack felt himself lifting. "Trust me." "That seems like a dangerous question." Her laugh echoed through the bay as she pushed off a wall, sending them both spinning slowly through the open space. Their fingers intertwined naturally, and Jack found himself staring into those amber eyes. "So," Alessa said softly, "tell me something true, something you've never told anyone." "I volunteered for this assignment," Jack admitted. "Everyone thought I was crazy. 3 years on an alien world, away from everything familiar. But I wanted more. Something beyond the same gray corridors and recycled air. And? Have you found it?" He pulled her closer, their bodies rotating slowly in the darkness. "I'm looking at it." She bit her lip, a gesture he was learning meant she was fighting a smile. "That's incredibly cheesy, Jack Vey. Yet you're blushing." I can see it, even with the purple skin. Virilians don't blush. Then why are your cheeks darker? She pushed him away playfully, sending him tumbling toward a storage container. He caught himself, laughing, and pushed back toward her. They met in the middle, momentum carrying them into each other's arms. Your mother would kill me if she saw this, Jack murmured. She'd kill us both. Alessa's fingers traced the line of his jaw. My people believe in strategic partnerships, arranged connections. Love is considered a weakness. And what do you believe? I believe. Her face was so close now, her breath warm against his lips, that some things are worth the risk. Their first kiss tasted like starlight and rebellion. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Alessa rested her forehead against his. We should stop. Absolutely. This is dangerous. Completely. My mother has spies everywhere. Terrifying. She laughed, the sound vibrating through both of them. Why aren't you afraid? Who says I'm not? Jack cupped her face in his hands. I'm scared to death, Alessa. But I'm more afraid of never knowing what this could be. They spent the next hour floating through the bay, sharing stories between kisses. Alessa told him about growing up under her mother's strict rule. Always watched, never free. Jack described Earth's oceans, trying to explain the concept of waves to someone who'd never seen that much water in one place. Take me there someday, she whispered against his shoulder. To Earth. Anywhere. Everywhere. Her fingers traced patterns on his chest. Show me what freedom feels like. Your mother will have to accept it. But her voice shook slightly. Eventually, as third moonrise approached, the time when patrol shifts changed, they reluctantly reactivated the gravity. Landing was less graceful than the floating had been, ending with them tangled together on the floor, laughing. Same time tomorrow? Alessa asked, standing and smoothing her hair. I'd meet you every hour if I could. She paused at the doorway. Be careful what you wish for, human. I might take you up on that. Then she was gone, leaving only the scent of cinnamon and the memory of her lips. Jack touched his mouth, grinning in the darkness. He was in so much trouble. When an alien matriarch asks why you're dating her daughter, because she's hot, is apparently not the right answer. The summons came 3 weeks later, delivered by 2 Virilian guards who looked like they could snap Jack in half without trying. Matriarch Vera requests your presence, the taller one said, his voice flat. Immediately, Jack's stomach dropped. Can I ask what this is about? The guard's expression answered that question clearly. You know exactly what this is about. The council chamber was massive, all soaring ceilings and crystalline walls that caught the light in prismatic patterns. And at the center, seated on a throne that seemed grown from the planet itself, sat Matriarch Vera. She was terrifying, taller than Alessa by half a foot, her purple skin darker, almost midnight blue. Her black hair was woven with silver threads and precious stones. But it was her eyes, the same amber as her daughter's, but cold, calculating, that made Jack feel like an insect under a microscope. Jack Vey. Her voice carried the weight of authority that came from decades of absolute rule. Do you know why you're here? I have a pretty good guess, ma'am. Ma'am. She almost smiled. How diplomatic. Tell me, human, what do you know about Virilian courtship traditions? That they're complicated, strategic, and usually arranged by families. And yet you pursued my daughter anyway. It wasn't a question. Jack felt sweat trickle down his spine, but he kept his voice steady. With respect, matriarch, I didn't pursue her. We found each other. Semantics. Vera stood, and the room seemed to shrink. She descended from her throne, each step deliberate, until she stood directly in front of him. Answer me this, human. Why are you with my daughter? The question hung in the air like a blade. Jack could feel eyes on him, advisors, guards, probably half the court watching from hidden alcoves. One wrong word and he'd be on the next transport off Aurealis. Or worse, he thought about lying, about giving some diplomatic answer about cultural exchange or mutual respect. Then he thought about Alessa. The way she laughed in zero gravity, how her eyes lit up when he described Earth's oceans, the fierce intelligence behind every conversation, the softness she showed only when they were alone. Because she's brilliant, Jack said, meeting Vera's gaze directly. Because she's brave enough to question traditions that don't serve her. Because when she talks about the future, she sees possibilities instead of limitations. Because she makes me want to be better than I am. He paused. And because when I'm with her, I feel like I've finally found what I've been looking for my entire life. I couldn't stay away if I tried. Silence. Vera stared at him, her expression unreadable. The seconds stretched into what felt like hours. You dare speak to me of love? Her voice was dangerously quiet. You, a human who will live barely a century? Whose people are children in the cosmic scale? You would claim to understand my daughter. I don't claim to understand her completely, Jack said. But I'm spending every day trying to. Isn't that what matters? What matters, Vera said coldly, is strength, power, legacy, not these feelings you humans are so obsessed with. Then why are your hands shaking? The question slipped out before Jack could stop it. But it was true. Vera's fingers trembled slightly against her sides. Her eyes flashed dangerously. You, mother. Alessa's voice cut through the tension like a knife. She stood in the chamber's entrance, her black hair flowing loose around her shoulders, her chin raised in defiance. That's enough. Alessa, I did not summon you. I don't care. Alessa crossed the room, positioning herself beside Jack. You want to know why he's with me? Because he sees me. Not the matriarch's daughter. Not a political tool. Not a strategic alliance. Me. And I see him the same way. Vera looked between them, something complicated crossing her features. You would choose this? A human? Throwing away everything I've built for you. I'm not throwing anything away. Alessa took Jack's hand. I'm choosing my own future. For a long moment, Vera simply stared. Then, incredibly, her shoulders sagged slightly. You have his courage, she said quietly, and his stubbornness. She turned back to Jack. I could have you removed. Yes, ma'am. I could forbid you from seeing her. You could try. A ghost of a smile touched Vera's lips. My daughter has chosen poorly in many ways. But perhaps, she exhaled slowly, perhaps not in this. Turns out, winning over an alien mother-in-law involves more than just flowers. Try fighting a combat drone while she watches. The challenge came the next morning. A formal summons to the training grounds. It's a test, Alessa explained, pacing Jack's quarters. My mother doesn't accept anything easily. She'll want to see if you're worthy. Worthy how? Should I be worried about mortal combat? Only semi-mortal. At his expression, she almost laughed. I'm joking. Mostly. Just be yourself. And don't die. I'd be very upset if you died. I'll add that to my to-do list. The training grounds were vast. A combination of physical obstacles and holographic projections. Vera stood at the observation platform, surrounded by her advisors, watching with those calculating amber eyes. Jack Vey, she called out, you claim to care for my daughter. Prove you're strong enough to protect her. With respect, matriarch, Alessa doesn't need protection. She's perfectly capable. A combat drone materialized behind him, weapons charging. Jack dove and rolled, coming up near a barrier. Okay, I get the point. The next hour was brutal. Obstacle courses designed for Virilians who were taller and stronger than humans. Tactical puzzles that required understanding alien strategic thinking. And always those drones forcing him to stay moving, stay sharp. He failed more than he succeeded. But every time he fell, he got back up. Enough, Vera finally called. Tell me, human, why do you persist? You're outmatched. You could yield. Jack wiped blood from a split lip, breathing hard. Because giving up isn't an option. Not when something matters this much. And my daughter matters this much? Your daughter, Jack said clearly, matters more than anything. From the corner of his eye, he saw Alessa watching from a side entrance, her hand pressed to her mouth. Vera descended from the platform, studying him with new intensity. You're weak by our standards. Slow. Fragile. Yeah, I'm aware. And yet you stood before me yesterday without fear. You fight through pain. You refuse to quit. She circled him slowly. These are not weaknesses, human. These are strengths my people have forgotten in our pursuit of perfection. She turned to her advisors. Leave us. When they were alone, just Vera, Jack, and Alessa watching from the shadows, the matriarch's expression softened slightly. I was bonded once, she said quietly, before I became matriarch. He was strong, perfect by every measure. And he loved power more than he ever loved me. She looked at Jack. You understand what you're choosing? The scrutiny? The challenges? Some of my people will never accept you. I know. And you'll do it anyway? Every single day. Vera nodded slowly. Then perhaps you are worthy after all. She raised her voice. Alessa, stop hiding and join us. Alessa emerged, defiant and beautiful, moving to stand beside Jack. He wrapped an arm around her waist, and she leaned into him naturally. I still don't approve, Vera said, but I'm beginning to understand. She looked at her daughter. You will face opposition. Are you prepared for that? With him beside me? Yes. Then I won't stand in your way. Vera's expression was complex. Pride, concern, acceptance all mixed together. But human? If you ever hurt her, you'll have to get in line behind me, Jack said, because I'd never forgive myself. That night, in Alessa's private quarters, rooms Jack had never been allowed to enter before, they celebrated their small victory. You were incredible today, Alessa murmured, her fingers tracing the bruises on his shoulders. Stupid and reckless, but incredible. I learned from the best. She kissed each bruise gently. Does it hurt? Not when you do that. Her laugh vibrated against his skin. My mother actually likes you. I still can't believe it. Likes might be a strong word. Tolerates. For her, that's practically love. Alessa pulled back to look at him, her amber eyes serious. Thank you for fighting for this. For us. Alessa, I would fight. She stopped his words with a kiss that tasted like victory and promise and the beginning of forever. They say humans and aliens can't build a life together. We're proving them wrong, one kiss at a time. 6 months later, Jack stood in the observatory gardens, the most beautiful location on Orialis Station. The twin moons hung full and bright, casting silver and gold across flowering plants that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. Nervous? Commander Davis asked, adjusting Jack's formal uniform. Terrified, Jack admitted, but in a good way. Never thought I'd see the day a human married into a Virilian ruling family. Davis grinned. You're making history, Vey. I'm just marrying the woman I love. The ceremony was a blend of traditions, human and Virilian, Earth and Orialis. Vera stood as witness, her expression proud despite the conservative advisors who'd protested this union. Members of both species filled the gardens, proof that bridges could be built between worlds. Then Alessa appeared, and Jack forgot how to breathe. She wore traditional Virilian ceremonial robes in deep purple, her black hair woven with crystals that caught the moonlight. But it was her smile, radiant, unguarded, full of joy, that made his heart stutter. Hi, she whispered when she reached him. Hi yourself. You look. If you say beautiful, I'll think you've lost all creativity. I was going to say transcendent, but beautiful works too. The ceremony blurred. Words were spoken in 2 languages. Promises made before witnesses from 2 worlds. And when they finally kissed as bonded partners, the gathered crowd erupted in cheers that echoed across the station. Later, in their shared quarters, officially there's now a space that belonged to both of them, they finally had a moment of peace. We did it, Alessa said, still wearing her ceremonial robes, her hair loose around her shoulders. We actually did it. Jack pulled her close, his hands resting on her hips. Having second thoughts? Not even one. She kissed him softly. Though I should warn you, my mother has already started planning grandchildren. Already? She asked me this morning if humans and Virilians are compatible, reproduction-wise. Jack laughed. What did you tell her? That we do extensive research and get back to her. Alessa's smile turned mischievous. Very extensive research. Might take years. I like the way you think. She led him toward their bedroom, the space they'd decorated together. A blend of Earth memories and Virilian aesthetics. You know what my mother told me right before the ceremony? What? She said, I never imagined a human could care for you like this, but he truly does. Alessa turned to face him, her eyes bright. She was wrong about one thing though. What's that? You don't just care for me. She wrapped her arms around his neck. You love me, completely, recklessly, across every barrier and boundary. And I love you the same way. Across the stars, Jack murmured against her lips. Across galaxies. They undressed each other slowly, learning the map of each other's bodies as if for the first time, though they'd been here before. But this was different, official, recognized, permanent. Alessa's purple skin glowed in the moonlight streaming through the viewport. Jack's hands traced paths that made her gasp, her fingers leaving trails of fire across his shoulders. I love how you touch me, she whispered. Like I'm precious. You are precious. You're everything. They moved together like twin moons in orbit, different, distinct, but perfectly balanced. Her height meant they fit together in unexpected ways, her strength matching his gentleness. When she cried out his name, it sounded like a prayer and a promise. Afterward, tangled in sheets that smelled like cinnamon and home, Alessa traced patterns on Jack's chest. What are you thinking? He asked. That I want to show you my homeworld. The southern continent where the crystal forests grow. And then I want you to take me to Earth. Show me those oceans you're always talking about. We'll go everywhere, Jack promised. See everything. Together. Together, she echoed, sealing it with a kiss. Outside their window, Borealis rotated slowly. The planet where a human and an alien had dared to fall in love despite every rule saying they shouldn't. Where courage and honesty had won over tradition and fear. Where two hearts, beating in different rhythms, had found a way to sync. In the morning, Matriarch Vera would summon them for an official breakfast, probably with a dozen advisors ready to discuss their future roles and responsibilities. Gossip would continue spreading about the unprecedented union. Challenges would arise. But tonight, in the silver and gold moonlight, wrapped in each other's arms, Jack and Alessa simply existed, two souls who'd found each other across the vast emptiness of space. Hey Jack, Alessa murmured, half asleep. Thank you for being brave enough to answer my mother's question honestly. That's when I knew. Knew what? That you were mine. Completely mine. Jack smiled into her hair. Always was. From that first night in the maintenance bay. Liar. You were mine the moment you didn't run away when I told you who my mother was. Fair point. They drifted off to sleep like that. Two beings from different worlds, proving that love didn't need to speak the same language or share the same biology. It just needed to be real. And theirs was the realest thing in the galaxy. In the years that followed, Jack and Alessa became ambassadors of a sort, proof that connection could transcend difference. Their children, yes, it turned out humans and Virilians were compatible, much to Vera's delight. Grew up speaking two languages, celebrating two cultures, belonging to two worlds. And whenever anyone asked Jack what made him dare to love someone so different, so impossible, he always gave the same answer. Because some things are worth the risk. And she was worth everything.